Hi everyone, it's KnifeFighter22 here. I hope you guys are all well. Now today I'm very excited because I'm going to be showing you a game I had recently coming out of the Danish Gambit opening, which for those of you who don't know is a very aggressive and dynamic opening you can play as white, where you end up gambiting up to 2 pawns in order to create a lead in development. If you're not aware of that, I'll show you in a minute, but I might do some more research on the Danish Gambit in the near future. So the game we had here, it was a really aggressive game, and I really had a really good attack in the opening. So we have e4, e5, d4, offering up the pawn, and now we have e takes on d4, and now we're going to have pawn to c3. So this is kind of the center game accepted, and by c3 I'm signaling, I don't want to take this pawn back with my queen and fall into any knight c6 traps. I'm going to offer up this second pawn. And the whole idea is black's going to take the pawn, and then white is going to offer up bishop to c4 and offer up this third pawn in order to get quick development with the bishop. So my opponent didn't go for that. He didn't play the main line. He played knight to f6, which apparently is okay for black. After knight takes c3, I reckon black's got a good position. I mean, black's up a pawn. Obviously, white does have a good lead in development, but I think black's okay here. What the computer actually recommends in the main line is to take. And when after c takes b2, we have this variation with bishop takes b2. And this is the actual main line Danish Gambit variation. Now, from what I know, from my opening theory, I reckon that d5 is the strongest move here. So if you guys ever run into the Danish Gambit, probably d5. And the problem with d5 is after white takes, which is the best move, there is often going to be a trade of queens, and a trade of queens is not what white wants, because white is 2 pawns down to get a good lead in development and a good attack. And if the trading of the queen occurs, his attack's being compromised and he's less likely to be able to checkmate in the middle game. And then going into the end game, black could stay 2 pawns up. So he doesn't want that to happen. I'll show you what I mean here. So for example, after the move knight f6, the bishop is being attacked. And say if you move the bishop back to b3, then you simply can have a trade of queens. Queen takes, and after king takes d1, the pawn on e4 falls. So black is keeping his 2 pawn, lead. And yeah, then you have a pretty nasty position. F2 is threatened, and it's not what you want to be playing as white when you're a Danish Gambit player. So the best move, if you ever run into this, this bishop's very, very strong. You don't really want white to come in and take here. So you want to go ahead and play bishop takes f7. It looks like white's winning the black queen here, but it's not really, because after king takes, queen takes d8, black's got this really nice move, bishop to b4 check. And obviously the queen is going to be lost because there's a discovered attack by the rook. So the queen moves back to defend. And after bishop takes and knight takes, the position here is much better for white than what it was in the other variation. The material has been equalized, and white does have a bit of a lead in development in his position. But they do have an isolated a pawn, and black can get his rook out pretty quick. And I don't think playing the Danish Gambit is what you really want. You really want to have a strong attack without a queen trade. So yeah, my opponent did opt for knight to f6, which obviously leads down some lines which white might not be comfortable with. So knight takes c3, and now bishop to c5, and I think this is a very good move. The computer regards this as equal, so it's still equal. White's down a pawn, white's got better development, but black's development is pretty good. The only problem with this position now is I can now play a concept which I learned from the Vienna game, and it's when this e5 pawn is gone, you can actually go ahead and play pawn to e5. And just look at the knight on f6. All of these squares you know, h5, g4, e4, d5, they're all covered by my pieces. So it might end up that the knight has to play a very passive knight to g8, which delays castling and all sorts. So here we have queen to e7, just trying to sort this out. The computer's actually recommending a better move being knight to g8 immediately, and then after something like queen, oh sorry, that's not right. And then after something like queen to d5, threatening the mate, just a simple queen to e7, and then maybe queen to e4 defending that pawn, pawn to c6, knight to f3, and then d5, blunting out the bishop. And it's recommending taking on Passon and then castling for white. And I know, you know, black's not got the best position here. He's still a pawn up, and I think there's, you know, white's got good compensation for it, but this position is still fairly equal. But the problem with playing queen e7 first is I can play queen up to e2, and now the knight's going to be lost. Basically, I couldn't take the knight here because the queen could then take my king. So this pawn is pinned. But queen e2 gets out of the pin, and then knight to g8 was played. And as you can see, you know, I am down in material, one pawn, but all of a sudden I have a very strong attack. The main reason why the computer didn't like the move, queen to e7, is I now have this move, knight to d5. Now the problem with knight to d5, it attacks the queen, but it's now out, you know, out in the middle of the game. My queen's okay here on e2 because none of the black pieces are even near it. You know, the two knights are still on their home squares, and the light square bishop that will be able to attack this queen is still on its home square. So what you'll notice is the knight attacking the queen. It's also attacking this very weak c7 square, which would threaten a fork between the king and the rook. So the queen has to defend that. It can't go to d6 to defend it because of the pawn. So the queen has to play to d8, which is a very passive move. Now, in this position, I played a move that the computers are saying is a little bit odd, but I would like your opinion on it. So I am considering playing bishop to g5 and, you know, attacking the queen. Obviously, the queen can come out and take this, but what I want to ultimately do is lure the queen out of here, get the queen, you know, taking on g2 or something to get the queen out of the action, and then my plan is to get queen h5 and try and really attack these weak pawns. But obviously I can't play bishop to g5 at the moment. Well, I can, you know, but it's not a particularly decent move because bishop to e7 sorts everything out. It doesn't lure the queen out and then I'm just trading an attacking piece for an attacking piece, and that's not what I really want to do. So I play the move pawn to b4. And the whole idea with pawn to b4 is that it gets the bishop off the diagonal. The bishop can't take with check because then knight takes and he's lost a piece. So I'm effectively putting the question to this bishop, what are you going to do? If you go back to your home square on f8, that would be lovely because look at my attack. But the player, you know, probably wouldn't do that. Instead, he played the move bishop to d4, attacking the rook, which is great for me because the rook is now off that diagonal that I want it to be on. I now play bishop to g5, which, you know, results in a very risky position for him. If he wanted to kind of equalize the position, the best move for him to do so is probably to take. So after queen takes g5, you may be thinking, oh well, what have you done? You've just sacrificed your bishop. But knight f3 is quite a neat move, you know, forking the queen and the bishop. And the queen doesn't want to really play back to a passive square like g6, because then knight takes bishop, and this was my whole idea. I've got a better position, and the queen's been ruled out. And even with queen takes g2, I'd quite like to play rook into f1 and everything's absolutely fine. The queen is out of the action, and then I can use these minor pieces out here to attack the king. So it wouldn't really be in its best interest to make a passive position and try and save the queen. So queen takes g2 is probably best, putting pressure on f2. At which point, I've got a couple of different options. I could always consider rook to g1, just attacking the queen, and the queen doesn't want to go to h3, so we could have a trade going off here. Obviously, I'm going to win the bishop back now. And I think after a position like this, my pawns are completely detonated, but I think I've got the time to still create a crushing advantage. So, for example, he's got to defend c7 by moving his king, and then I've got rook takes g7, threatening f7, and I think I've got enough compensation for the damaged pawn structure and the, well, there's hardly any pawn. I've hardly got any pawns left. So there's been a complete annihilation of pawns, but I think my minor pieces and the fact that every single one of his pieces are on the home square, it gives me a significant advantage in that position. There's another variation with, when I go ahead and take this pawn instead of playing the rook across and then forcing moves and then castling, attacks his bishop and connects the rooks. So I quite like a position like this. King takes c7, and then knight takes, and then knight c6, knight f3. I thought it was alright. Instead, he didn't play that at all. He played the move f6, and this is crushing for black. Black should not have played f6. Queen takes g5 was definitely the better move for him. The problem with f6 is that when I take the pawn, which I can do, I can take it with check. And remember, this queen, the d and c pawns haven't moved, so this queen is going to struggle to find a square. So now I can take. This is check. And let's look at black's options here. He hasn't got many. The first option would be something like knight to e7, which is hopeless because pawn takes, and the queen is completely trapped. A threatening promotion for another queen. The king can't even castle because the pawn's guarding f7. So eventually this queen is going to be captured. If queen takes pawn here, which is probably the best move, then checkmate. No, that's not going to be the best move, is it? My point is there's not much that the black player can do here. So let's see what else he has. Bishop to e5, blocking the check is pointless because takes. This is pretty much the only useful piece he has at the moment, actually, attacking the undefended rook. So the king's got two options. You can go to f8 or f7. f7 is probably the best square. The only problem with going to f7 is there's discovered knight checks. He went to f8, and the problem with f8 is that when I take here, that's with check. So, and there's a discovered attack on the queen. So he's probably going to lose the queen. The best move for him in this position is probably to take the pawn. If he tries to run to f7, well, then queen f3 is just deadly. Something like this. I think it's just too much of an attack on the. It's just too much of an attack on the king. Even if he played to f7, I could probably still take the. Wait, sorry, what am I talking about? If he played to f7 now, hang on. There we go. Sorry, playing to f7 now. It would still be dangerous. But I think it would be better. There's definitely not an immediate threat of the queen being won. So that's not what happened in the game. He went to f8, takes, and now the king took. As I said, he doesn't want to run over here because of f3. Right. And now I play bishop takes d8. Now, his next move here I didn't really like. He played bishop takes a1, trying to pick up material here, but it's a completely lost position because all of his pieces are on the home rank, apart from this bishop, which is completely isolated from the position. So now we have queen to g4 check. And this is where my opponent resigns. The computers are giving me 18 points up in material, which is quite a pleasant advantage. I really don't think bishop takes a1 was the best move. Could he save the position? Maybe. I mean, Fritz Chess Engine recommends to move pawn to d6. You just go back here, pawn to d6, which I think is a lot better. The main theory behind pawn to d6 is that this bishop is now controlling these key squares g4 and e6, which are the squares I'm going to play my queen to attack the king. You know, I can't play queen g4 now. I can't play queen e6. So that would probably be a good move in trying to develop some kind of piece structure. But no, bishop takes a1 was played, which gives me even more advantage. And now queen to g4. This is where he resigns. You know, and I won the game. Possible play could continue king to f8, but then queen to f5 check. Say for example he blocked. This knight is defended by the bishop. Knight takes knight. Bishop takes. Queen takes. Where's the king? The king's got to go here, and then that's checkmate. But yeah, that's just one variation. Knight f6 probably wasn't the strongest move in that position. He could have probably played across there. But yeah, that was the game. I hope you guys enjoyed watching that. I've been Night Fighter 22, and I wish you good luck playing chess, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.